it is pitch dark, and you can hear the deep roaring of lions in the background. Today, you've walked for 6 hours in the Okavango Delta, and you feel so tired, but so satisfied and very humble about what you experienced in wilderness today. The campfire is illuminating your world, and your imagination elevates you to new dimensions of your mind. From the heart of Africa to the Africa of your heart, we give you Alan McSmith, your wilderness guide.
I'd like to invite you all to join in a rite of passage. It's a rite that was devised by a wise old bushman who lives deep in the Kalahari. He is known simply as Pathfinder. And what Pathfinder did was this: he developed this rite to help young bushmen who were leaving the village and moving into a transformation in their lives. Young bushmen who are looking for a meaningful encounter in their lives. So, in your imagination, I'd like to transport you to the Kalahari with Pathfinder. And what you're going to have to do is sit on the ground. You'll be seated on the ground, alone, all night, with a blindfold on. And the only time you may remove the blindfold is when you feel the sun shining on your face the next morning. So, please put on your blindfolds. Those of you that have, I'm not sure if we've got enough for everyone, but imagine yourself walking with Pathfinder through the grass. And he finds a place for you to sit, and he taps you on the shoulder, and he walks back to the village. And the darkness swallows you. Soon a breeze picks up, and you feel the wind blowing through the grass at your feet and through the trees behind. And the hairs on the back of your neck are standing because you are feeling very uncomfortable outside your comfort zone. Soon after that, a noise from behind. A leopard calls out into the night. A troop of baboons, terrified at the presence of their mortal enemy. But you resist the temptation, you sit quietly. You have no control over the situation. So the leopard and the baboon become your fear. Are you afraid of losing control? Not long afterwards, another sound from the distance. A lion calls out, and the lion becomes your fear. Are you afraid of crossing boundaries? But you resist the temptation to zip off your blindfold, and pretty soon you feel the light changing. Even through your blindfold, you can feel the light lifting. And you feel the sun shining on your legs. And the sun lifts up and shines on your belly and on your waist. And eventually, much to your relief, you feel the sun shining on your face. And that's your signal. You can take off your blindfolds. You've done it. You've done it. You're alive. But because you've been sitting in darkness the whole night, your eyes are a little bit unaccustomed to the light, so you're blinking and you turn around, and the first thing you see as you turn around is not a leopard. It's not a baboon, and it's not a lion. The first thing you see as you turn around, behind you, Pathfinder. He'd been sitting behind you all night in silence, watching out for you. He knew a thing or two about life, old Pathfinder. And for me, one of the biggest lessons that young bushman learned was you have to understand your fears, because fears develop a barrier between our authentic selves. And he went back to the village with a clear vision of his legacy that he wanted to leave behind. And now from that harsh environment of the Kalahari to Amsterdam, with all your luxuries and all your everything, life is so easy here. Do you have a clear vision of your destiny and your legacy? That's my story of Pathfinder. And he taught me once that wilderness is not necessarily a place. It's not a place, it's a way of life. Hello, I'm Alan from Africa. Greetings from Africa to everyone here. I've traveled from my home to talk about nature and why I believe it's important in our lives, even in modern societies. You may have figured out by now that my office is slightly different to yours. This photograph was taken on a trail in the Okavango on a 4-week-long expedition, so that explains why my feet are so dirty. But one morning we went out walking, and I found this elephant bull, and I walked up to him, and he started walking up to me, and I did what all good safari guys would do. I panicked. I panicked. And as he came towards me, a curious thing happened. I didn't see his sheer size, and I didn't see his strength that was capable of crushing every bone in my body. But I saw his dark, soft, gentle, hazel-colored eyes. And I decided to lay down on the ground. And I believe I connected with an animal in a way that's not always logical. So I quit the commercial safari industry. I was making a good living pouring gin and tonics for rich tourists, but it didn't make a heck of a lot of sense. And I decided to dedicate my life to sharing moments like these on trail, where we do walking trails and canoe trails. And something in my life changed. Everything seemed to make sense after these moments. And soon after that, I had another upheaval in my life. Africa's a rough place. And a friend told me the story of the 7 stones. And I'd like to share them with you. If you can imagine, I've got 7 stones from Africa here. If you can imagine that each stone represents a decade of your life, 10 years. And the 7 stones in front of you represent your life, the old biblical 70. So that was my life in front of me. And this guy asked me, how old are you? So I said, I was 30 at the time. So I said, I'm 30. He said, right. Take away 3 stones. You may be too old to do what you want for your last stone, so take that away. And this is all I had. These 3 stones were all I had. So for me, nature became something more. It became a way of life, a place. And my story of stories here is to share another example of what I mean. But before I go further, I'd like to introduce a friend of mine to the story. His name is Cobra. He is a Suakwe bushman. And if I may ask, he's a pretty rough-looking guy. And if I may ask a question to you, if you are sitting at home and you're around your dinner table, and it's cold outside, and the doorbell goes, and you go and open the door, and this guy is standing outside, how many would let him in? I'm not sure I would, but that's... A couple of hands go up. It's not good odds if you're Cobra on a cold night, but anyway. He is a Suakwe bushman, the Salt people, and his descendants have been living on the Makgadi-Pan area, which is in present-day Botswana, for about 40,000 years. And if you spend time with this guy, you get the feeling that he is a vessel holding knowledge and wisdom of 40,000 years. Even the trees seem to know him. And I was out walking with Cobra one day, and he called me over. He doesn't say many words. He called me over, and he'd found this little stem, a single-stemmed bush. And he called me over, and he said, that was the cue to sit down. So I sat down next to the bush, and he started digging with his digging stick around it like this, singing away to himself. And eventually, he pulled out a tuber, like a big potato. And he put it down. It was a hot day in the Kalahari. And he slithered off some flesh with his knife, and he showed me how to crush the flesh in your hand and let the water run down your finger, your thumb into your mouth. Didn't taste too good. And of course, we had some guy on the trail with us who really didn't get it. And he said, "Hey man, you got any cold Cokes down there?" He was a safari guide. But anyway, this was pretty special. And what Cobra did next was again touched my life. He put the tuber back in the ground, and he realigned it, and he connected the roots that were broken. He covered up the soil with his hands. Be very careful not to touch the stem or the leaves. Covered it up. Gave it some moisture. And he said, "We go." And yeah, the art of sustainability. Cobra is an illiterate man. He's uneducated. So in the context of modern society, he may be considered a bum, a dropout. But to me, the man's a genius. And my question to you is, how many of us gulp from that tuber of life? Okay? How many of us take what we want and leave it lying in the sun to dry? Because Cobra knew that some other Suakwe traveler would need the tuber again. Wilderness is not a place. It's a way of life. You've probably figured that I've got a soft spot for elephants judging by all the elephants in the... And you'd be right. They are the most incredible animals. I'm not sure if this has ever been done before on TEDx, but I have a gift for everyone here. I hope there's enough to go around. When you came in, you would have found a little stone. Looks like this. It's a gift. It's a stone from the motherland. It's not a diamond or an emerald. It's something more valuable than that. So it's yours to take home. And feel the stone. And what you can do is keep it in your pocket, or keep it on your desk, or your car, or your dressing table. And whenever you feel threatened by a fearful decision, or a lion, or a baboon in the boardroom, perhaps. Is it familiar? Feel the stone, and it will bring you back to a place, a point in time where you have an inspiration from within, because true inspiration comes from within. You don't need to look outside of it. And the stone will bring you back to those points. And it will remind you that wilderness experiences can happen all over the world, no matter where you live around the world. This is a picture of my daughter Meg. Is standing in the rain, watching your child's smiling, beaming face as he plays hockey, is that not a wilderness experience? Or how about walking hand in hand with a loved one through a forest? Reaching out for a friend in need without any expectation in return. It's the simple things that we take for granted. And those are the golden threads that bind us together as humans. So for me, wilderness is not a place. It's a way of life. And the conservation of nature, then, should not be considered as the conservation of elephants, animals, water, trees, plants, soil, or air. The conservation of nature is the conservation of a sacred attitude to our world. In closing, my question to you is, what legacy will you choose to leave behind?
Thank you so much.